Hello, welcome to Making Photos. I'm Ian Butterfield. This time we're going to look at a relatively new feature in Lightroom. We're going to look at the topic of masking. Now, this is something that was introduced towards the end of last year with Lightroom, and I have used it in a couple of my tutorials, but I haven't done a full in-depth look at it, an explanation of how it works. So let's head into Lightroom. Right, so I have got two images available to me here. First is the Cathedral of Northern Lights in Alta. The other is a fun photo of model Karen R. So let's start with Alta. And the first thing I want to do is just check I've got lens corrections on there, which I have now. I need to straighten that up, so that will give me a reasonably straight image. Right, okay, so we've got the image. I want to do a few things with it. I think it will work best as a black and white, so I'm going to pick off there. I want to just do a couple of things with the exposure. I think the exposure needs to just come down slightly, about a third of a stop. There we go. I think as a black and white, it will benefit from a bit more contrast. Now, I haven't yet used anything to do with the masking. Now, why is that? The reason is, at this stage with editing a photo, you want to try and see what you can do as a whole first. And I'm going to try and see what I can bring out of that sky, because it needs something with the dehaze slider. As I bring this up, we can see I'm getting a nice sky now, and that is looking really good, but it's really messed up the rest of the image. But by doing it at this stage, and see, right, actually, there is something to be gained there, but I can't do it all on the main slider. So might just leave a little bit in there. I now need to just modify the sky. To do that, I'm going to use the masking tool, which is this option up at the top. Unfortunately, there's no shortcut key for it. That's a bit of an oversight from Adobe, but there we go. That's what we've got. So I'm going to say select sky. Lightroom goes away and does its thing and provides a mask of just the sky. Now we'll reset everything that's in here, despite the fact that it's come through as a good job. Right, reset that. That's because I was running through the tutorial earlier. Right, so I've created this mask. Let me just show you a little bit about how things work. If I hover over it, you can see which sections are part of the mask. We've got an extra menu here, so we can do things like we can rename it, and I'm going to rename this Sky, so I can see what it is. If I want to see the mask over the image, I've got the Show Overlay option and a menu giving me the option of either a color overlay, a color overlay on black and white. As we're working with black and white, it doesn't help. Image on black and white, again, those sort of things don't help at the moment. Image on white, so you can just see the sections, or image or white on black. I quite like the white on black. We can see we've got sections here of the sky which haven't been added to the mask, and I would want them in there. So I am going to add them in. I'm going to say add using brush, and now I've selected let's go with a medium sort of size brush. I don't want the feather too large, and I don't need auto mask on here, so I can just paint in these extra bits which are going to get affected by the adjustments, in particular this bit of sky around here. Now I want to just catch the bits which are close to the building, so I'm going to enable auto mask, and you can see as I go close it's only affecting the white bits of sky on there, and similarly here. Now, it's brought a little bit in of that simply because that area is quite similar tone to the sky. So if I hold the Alt down, I can just correct that and just bring that back as it was. And similarly over here, I want to get rid of that, just to add that all into my mask. I've got a little bit round this side to do as well. And this just cleans it up to make sure I've got the entire sky in there. Now, we need to do a subtract because it's brought in some of this building. So subtract, brush, and again, I've got mask on there, and just make sure everything in this area is not considered part of the sky. So I've adjusted my mask like that. Let's not show the overlay anymore. Let's show the image. Now, I've got my standard adjustment controls here, but anything I adjust in here will only affect the area that's not masked, in other words, the sky. So the main tool I want to use is the dehaze slider. So I'm just going to bring the dehaze up until I start seeing that nice sky that we've got there. Bring the highlights down and I think I might try adding a little bit of clarity in there as well. Yeah, that's giving it a nice bit of bite on that. So that's just affected the sky. Looking at the rest of the image, I want to do some things just to the building, and particularly I want to sort out this snow here. The building's looking a little bit dark. So what I can do is I can duplicate the sky, which obviously has done all that, made everything very, very dark, which is not what we want, but this is the copy. And I'm actually going to rename that to be building. It's affecting the sky rather than the building at the moment. What I need to do now is to invert this. So I go down to the sky, right click on that, invert. Now look what's happened. We've got something weird going on. These sections I've painted in the various parts. That's because we've inverted the mask, the items which were adds need to be subtracts, and the items which are subtracts need to be adds. Now, fortunately, Lightroom gives us the option to do that. So, on the first brush, convert to which is the subtract, I do a convert to add, and on the second brush, convert to subtract. Now, you can see we've just got the building. It's gone very dark, which is not what we want, so I'm just going to reset all the effects on the building. And we can now play around with this to see what we want to do. So the main thing I want to do is to really bolster the clarity, which means I just need to bring the exposure up a little bit on the contrast as well. That's looking quite good on there. A bit more on the clarity, I think. Quite like that sort of bite that the clarity gives. And a little bit on the texture as well. So the building itself's now looking quite good. But we've got a problem down here. I'd like to see some more detail in the snow. So what I can do now is I can use a different kind of mask. This time I'm going to use a brush mask. So create new mask, brush. And my settings on here, I've got a reasonable size on there. Don't want it too hard, so midpoint on there, low. I'm just going to reset all the effects on there, and I'm just going to bring up the dehaze because I think that's what I'm going to be using to bring out the detail in the snow. So now let's see what happens when I paint on. Yeah, that's nice. You see all that detail coming through on there, and I can just paint that on to the snow. and take my brush size down and just do a little bit in that area. I think that looks pretty good now. I'm happy with that. So I can come out of the masking tool, and just to recap what we've done on here, we've used Select Sky to capture the sky, and then we've darkened that down, and we've used the dehaze to bring out all the information in it. We then inverted that mask to create a mask for the building, which meant we needed to swap the adds for subtracts and the subtracts for adds with the brush strokes. And then we've added a third mask in just to darken off or to bring out the detail in the snow at the bottom, and that was done as a brush mask on there. And that's created the Cathedral of the Northern Lights black and white image. The other image I've got is the one of Karen, and I'm going to show you a few different tools on this one. With this image, what I want to do, it's already been processed, except I've decided I don't like the pink background. I think as she's wearing sort of purpley blues, I think it would have been better to have shot her on that. So again, our masking tool comes to the aid. This time I'm going to start with Select Subject. And again, Lightroom goes off and does its thing. And it's trying to find the subject on there. And it's found the subject and reset all the effects. Now, unfortunately, as ever, all these effects are going to happen to the subject. So for example, if I did an exposure thing, it's Karen who's getting bright, not the background. Well, we know how to sort that. It's right click on here and invert. Now it's really, really simple at this point. The hue slider, we are going to control the matchings of colors. So I'm going to just move this along until that background becomes the bluey, purpley colour that I'm looking for. Maybe it's on the other side, yeah. So that's more or less the sort of colours that I'm looking for. It's probably a little bit dark there, so I can just bring the exposure up, lighten it up. And that's not looking too bad at all. So let's just zoom in to have a look at a couple of things. Zoom into 100%. And what we can see, having done the change, that the edge round here isn't brilliant. We've got a little bit of pink showing through. So what do we want to do? We want to add it into the mask. So we go Add, and we use Brush. Now I'm going to have to zoom in a little bit further on here, so 200, 300%, just makes it a little bit easier to do. Now I want the auto mask on there. I'm not too worried about the feathering on it. It can be relatively hard on this. The size could do with being perhaps even a little bit smaller than that. And now I should just be able to paint in that extra mask, and because I've got that auto mask on there, that will just prevent me from effectively going over the edges. So we can see a little bit more pinks around the edge there, and a slightly larger brush with a few around here. So I just do those sort of edges. That will get rid of that sort of pinkiness that's round the feet. Again, over this side, let's just get rid of that pink glow that's around there. You see it even more around here, but that will just do it. And just paint down on there. And I'm just going to zoom in on Karen's hair because it looks a little bit pinky, as does that mug. So let's zoom in on that. Yeah, you can see here a couple of things. We've obviously missed a couple of points here. So again, smallish brush. I've got my auto mask on there, so I can just paint in those two little bits, and we just get that. Now you can see there's a bit of a pinkish reflection there. Now if I just paint straight in, that looks odd. It looks like there's no bottom to the mug. So Control Z on that. What I need to do to sort that one is just to bring the flow right down, and now I can just paint in just enough to just dull that pinkiness and replace it with a sort of a bluey purple glow which has come from so I'm just adding a little bit more into my mask. Now the hair, again, we've got a similar sort of issue here in that there's a little bit of pinkiness coming through, and it's really straightforward just to paint over just a little bit. We don't want to do a lot, just to give it the effect that it's the new colour coming through there. And over on this side as well. It doesn't do a bad job on the hair, to be fair. There's just little bits like that, and by just adding that little edge to it, it just does help sell it a little bit better. I need to go over it a few times because my flow is quite low on there, and that should be enough. Looking a little less pink now. And that, I think, really is sufficient with it. So come out of the mask, there's our finished image. And you can see I've changed the background. It's of course all non-destructive, but I can go back into this at any time, select my mask, and I can change the hue to a different colour if I want. And it just gives me that power of controlling the background. If I wanted Karen on a pure white background, yeah, I can do that as well. And there we go. She's been cut out onto a pure white background. Don't want that. So just bring that back. Don't want green. I'm going to go with this purpley blue colour there. And that's it. So, hope you found this week's video helpful. I thought it was worth going through these tools within Lightroom because I've referred to them in the past, but haven't really explained all the different things that they can do and how you use them. Hope you found it helpful, and for your next viewing pleasure, there's a video here on the screen and a playlist of other Lightroom tutorials below it. So until next time, thanks for watching and keep making great photos. Bye for now.